You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Thank you so much for joining me here today on this Wellness and Weight Loss Wednesday, where I have a fun topic. I want to go over the 3 best and worst foods for your thyroid. Now, since everyone has a thyroid, I know some people have actually had that removed because of thyroid disease, a thyroid-based cancer, or tumor, but we still need to be eating these foods for proper metabolic function. And yes, that does include the thyroid in the body. So what I want to do today is really simply, really concisely, there's 3 main foods that you want to stay away from if you want to keep your thyroid healthy. And there's 3 foods that you want to add in, especially if you have any thyroid-based issues. I'm going to explain exactly why with each one, and then really let you start to incorporate this into your diet. Remember, you don't have to eliminate all of them at once if you don't want to, especially if you feel like none of them are hurting you, or you've run a thyroid-based lab to see if you have any thyroid-based issues. Now, I've explained this before, but let me do a quick recap. If you get your TSH run at your annual blood physical, which you should, again, you should check out my previous podcast. Just go to stephencabral.com/podcasts and just simply search for the episode, What to Run and Why at your annual physical or for your annual blood work. And you'll see all the different labs to run. And then I did a follow-up a week later called Why Running Your Annual Blood Work Isn't Enough. And that's because if you start to find any anomalies, you need to go deeper. So your PCP, your MD, most likely is not going to do that unless they're an integrative doctor. And then, well, then you've struck gold. You're obviously seeing someone great, which is fantastic. So here's the deal though. You really do have to know a little bit, not a lot, just a little bit about what to look for. And again, you don't have to be the expert in this, but you need to know what to look for. So when you're running your annual blood work and you look at your TSH level, so that's your thyroid stimulating hormone, that's for your thyroid. Believe it or not, the higher that number, the worse your thyroid function. The slower your thyroid is actually operating, we'll put it that way. Now, a lot of people, it's counterintuitive, right? Because the higher the number, you would think, well, oh, my thyroid's operating too high, but that's not the case. Your thyroid stimulating hormone is actually overactive because the usable thyroid, let's call it T3, is not as active in the cell. That means your metabolism can't get its metabolic boost that it's looking for. Again, your thyroid controls so many things in your body. A lot of people don't know body temperature. I mean, that's a big one, like the thermostat of the body. Thyroid's a big part of that. A lot of people don't know this either, that believe it or not, their body's ability to properly synthesize and remove cholesterol from the blood has a lot to do with low thyroid as well. So again, if you have high cholesterol, your thyroid may not be functioning properly. And so again, look at that TSH, keep it 2.5 or below. This is what we look for. Proper functioning thyroid, 0.5 to 2 on your lab. So 0.5-2, that's where it should be. That's ideal TSH. Now, if you're within that range, you're probably doing fine for your T4 and T3. Most likely, no need to run additional lab work. However, let's say you're at 2.75. Well, you're starting to creep there. You could do the things, obviously, that I'm going to recommend today, or you could start to look at, why isn't my thyroid functioning as well? Do I have pretty good T4, but the T4 isn't translating to the active T3? Well, that's a really good possibility. So again, you can lab test for that. You can do it yourself, or you can ask your PCP. Now, if you want to do it yourself, I will link up the labs today, obviously, on the show. You can just go to stephencabral.com/803, and I will put the thyroid adrenal hormone test. I'm not going to talk about that test today because I've spoken about it in the past. If you want to know more about your thyroid, just check back at stephencabral.com/podcast. And I have episodes on the 4 toxins that you have to watch out for your thyroid, the 2 minerals that your thyroid needs, like all of those shows I've already done. So check that out. I'll link that up. And then also, if you're someone with Hashimoto's, I did speak about over the last couple of weeks why to run the complete thyroid. And that's because you already know your thyroid's not functioning well. Let's look at the reasons why. Is there cadmium, bromine, mercury, other heavy metals, and other toxins that's leading to lower thyroid function and blocking your body's ability to use iodine and selenium as well. So really, really important to check that out as well. Those were pretty popular shows. That was episode 789 if you're looking. So it's StephenCabral.com/789. And it's the 3 ways to test your metabolism and your thyroid. So check out those shows. Now let's get into, I believe that's pretty much everything you need. If your TSH, again, if your TSH is not between 0.5 and 2, well, then you need to do a little bit more exploring. However, your thyroid will always appreciate removing some of the foods that can cause trouble, especially in more susceptible people. We'll talk about those people in just a moment. And then everyone adding in these 3, we're going to call them superfoods because they literally are superfoods. And we don't get enough of them. These are 3 very rare foods, meaning like they're always accessible, but hardly any of us really get to them and eat them. So let's go over them now. I always start with the worst. When someone says, I have good news and bad news, I'm like, give me the bad news first. I want to end with the good stuff. So that's the kind of guy that I am. So let's go over that first. So, all right. This is probably not going to come as a surprise. We're going to talk about this one first. It's soy, okay? Soy for someone with thyroid-based issues, let's even say it again, like weight gain or metabolism-based issues. Let's think of it that way. Soy is not a great food for those types of people. Now, for other people, could they have some fermented soy? Could they have some tempeh? Could they have some organic, non-GMO sprouted tofu? Sure, a couple times a week. I'm not talking about having a cup daily, but I'm talking about using it more in like the Asian-based cultures who, again, have great longevity, great overall health. And the protein at their meal in general, if you listen to yesterday's controversial show, the longest lived people use protein as a garnish, for one meal, maybe 2 meals a day. Like if you want to live longer, you want to live a healthier life with less autoimmune, less issues, well, most likely you're going to want to listen and follow yesterday's advice, which is taking down one macro in your diet, which is protein. Again, like everyone's kind of saying that in a roundabout kind of way, except for the, like the bodybuilding, body transformation-based community. And I understand that. Again, I was a part of that for a long time, so I don't disagree with it. And by the way, it can transform your body by doing a higher protein diet. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is for overall health, not the best place to start for sure. So soy is not one of those foods we want to be loading up on. And I don't care if it's coming from edamame. I don't care if it's coming from whatever. Now, the worst sources of soy, without a doubt, are soy milk, without a doubt, soy formula for babies, and any type of processed soy, especially soy protein, soy isolate. I made the huge mistake myself. I want to get into my mistake in just 1 second, but I want to share with you really good studies on why you shouldn't use soy. What they found is that children who were given soy formula as a child had earlier childhood autoimmune-based issues. I'm going to get to why that is in a moment, but that's a huge issue, right? If you're not looking to have Hashimoto's disease, which is, again, the immune system going after the thyroid, again, I always believe that there's a precursor to that. I don't think your body's ever making a mistake. I think there's a precursor that has led to something called molecular mimicry, or your body's seen a amino acid strand, so a specific lookalike amino acid of protein, and then becoming overactive, and then the thyroid looking like that protein sequence, or a lot of great research now showing that certain lipopolysaccharides, it's either liposaccharides or lipopolysaccharides, it's just not coming to me right now, where fats are also transporting bacteria out of the gut wall and actually can attach themselves to the joints, make themselves inside of cells, make their way inside of cells, and the thyroid as well. So then your immune system would create these things called CD8-based cells, and that would actually cause tissue destruction. Now, are they causing tissue destruction because they messed up, or are they seeing bacteria in those cells and they're saying to that cell, hey, you need to self-destruct? That's a process called apoptosis. And the cell, knowing that its job is for the good of the body, actually will sacrifice itself. So it kills itself because it's been marked by these CD8 cells. And so now we get that tissue destruction in rheumatoid arthritis, in MS, in Hashimoto's, and all sorts of different autoimmune-based issues when inflammation and tissue destruction are present. So I know that was kind of a mouthful. I know that was complicated, but again, this is real science. I mean, these things exist today. The problem is you'll never hear that. You just never hear that from your specialist or your PCP or whoever it is. Again, unless they're a functional medicine doctor and has really gone deep in the research. And the reason you won't hear that is because then you have to get deep into nutrition. You have to get deep into diet. And again, it's not the MD's fault. They don't have time. And first of all, they don't have the education in nutrition. They didn't go to school for nutrition. They went to school for becoming a great physician and being able to prescribe pharmaceuticals. Again, it's not me coming down on them. That is what it is. That's the system. If you don't like the system, well, then you have to try to change the system. My job's not to change the system. That's for sure. That's someone else's job. My job is to arm you with the information so that you can take the best control of your health. So here's the deal though. If you're worried about your thyroid, let's just eliminate soy. Like bottom line, let's eliminate soy. You're not going to miss out at all. I mean, there's plenty of other proteins to choose from. And then when you get yourself healthy, a couple servings a week of organic sprouted tofu, honestly, for most people, no big deal. Now, if you have a goiter, if you're someone that does have some enlarged right around the neck, the goiter, then yeah, it might be something to stay away from. I agree with that. But for most people, I've never seen it be a big deal in my practice at all. So I have no problem once someone's healthy having a couple servings of tempeh or organic for some type of fermented soy per week. Okay, so next up is gluten. Again, a lot of people have heard of gluten, but they may have not heard about it from this standpoint, is that gluten can essentially cause this thing called molecular mimicry. It has been shown as a cross-contaminant with the immune system for susceptible people and Hashimoto's. So essentially, destructive-based thyroid issues. Now, that's the worst type of thyroid issue to have, right? Is when your immune system's attacking your thyroid. I will tell you this. The good news is this. Even if you have Hashimoto's, you have low thyroid, you have whatever, I've seen it reversed in hundreds of cases. And the reason why I've seen that is that unless your thyroid has been destroyed, like literally been destroyed by your immune system or by radiation, well, if you go back and you retrace your steps and you fix the intestinal permeability and you eliminate the offending foods, whether it's eggs or gluten or, any one of these foods, I'm just telling you the most prominent ones that I see in my practice. I just know gluten is like the dead giveaway. Well, if you have autoimmune issues, get rid of gluten, but especially if you have Hashimoto's or low thyroid, you have to get rid of it. It's just so important. So again, even if this show isn't for you, if you're a health practitioner or someone in your family is dealing with thyroid-based issues, low metabolism, poor circulation, high cholesterol, any one of these things, please have them eliminate gluten from their diet. They're only doing themselves favors. Again, once you get yourself healthy, guess what? You can have gluten again. I'm not saying every day. You can do what I do, and you can have it once a week or maybe twice at the most, but you can have it once or twice a week, and you can thoroughly enjoy yourself, and then just let it go. Let it go, all right? Start to focus on your health. I always just say, again, I'm not dissimilar to most people. I would love to eat pizza all the time. I would love to eat pasta all the time. I would love to have bread all the time. I would love to have sandwiches every day. Like, that's how I grew up. Those are the things that I absolutely enjoy. But I don't do it every day. And that's because I would then lose all this energy that I have. I would lose this immune system that I built up. I would have allergies again. I would have shortness of breath. My joints would hurt. My thumbs would be in pain. I wouldn't be able to pick up my two girls, my daughters anymore. Like, that was real. That was a big part of my life. So I never want to go back there. And because of that, I prioritize health over my taste buds. Again, we prioritize our taste buds too much. Every meal doesn't have to send our taste buds dancing, right? Like, it's okay not for every meal to be this like gourmet whatever, right? Oh, we can eat healthy food. We can enjoy it and enjoy being healthy. Like, when I eat this meal, I say, wow, this is a healthy meal. And I get into it and I enjoy that because I'm doing such healthy things for my body. And at the end of the meal, I'm like, that was delicious. Like, I enjoyed that. And I no longer have the craving for those sweets. One is because I removed the candida and the bacteria in my gut, but also after a while, a couple weeks, you literally begin to rebalance those taste buds. And that's for sure. You get rid of those sugar cravings. All right. So this is one that you never really hear about. And I don't want to make it my last one, but for a lot of people with thyroid-based issues, coffee. Coffee is cross-contaminated as well. Very, very similar in molecular, I don't want to say structure, but the way that your immune system sees it as the same as gluten. It can cause goitrogenic-based effects as well, so it can enlarge the goiter. So that's one that we sometimes have to get away with. Now, I know people don't love giving up their coffee, so usually we try to keep one small cup of coffee, if they want, after breakfast, not before. I've talked about why not before breakfast on my adrenal-based show, but afterwards, again, basically what it has to do is blunting the cortisol-based effects. So that's usually one that we don't make people eliminate because they love it and we want to just not ruin their life. So we do that. And then only if they need to would we eliminate it. All right. So the third one is this, because that was a little extra bonus one with gluten. They kind of, again, let's say cross-contaminate. That's the best way I can think about it right now, is dairy. Dairy is a huge one. And here's why. I did a whole show on why milk is not a health food. So that was way back in the day. I did that show. But essentially is that the proteins in milk, not sheep and not goat, mainly cow milk, the protein, the actual, again, we're going back to amino acids. So what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about proteins themselves. And then we're talking about the size of the protein molecules. So the protein molecules coming from cow's milk would be much larger than sheep and goat. But also then we're talking about amino acid-based strands. And that's just the connect. So meaning like lysine, glycine, leucine, valine, all of the different amino acids, how they string together. Well, one of the big issues is if you have any type of gut inflammation or you have any type of intestinal permeability, leaky gut, where these protein molecules can actually move into your bloodstream, they've been shown to have real autoimmune-based effects, meaning like your immune system targets it, whether it's from an IgE or IgG-based food sensitivity reaction. So you can actually test those. Obviously, that's pretty straightforward. But at the same time, your immune system can turn on in such a high degree that you can shift over to what's sometimes called a Th1-based immune response. And again, it's not every autoimmune, but more autoimmune-based processes move through this Th1-based autoimmune issue, which is this very harsh, acute inflammatory-based response, and that it can target tissue, okay? So it's not going to inflame the body like a Th2, which would be like allergies and asthma and some skin issues, but more of this like, hey, let's go directly after the joints. Let's go after the thyroid. Let's go after the myelin sheath on the nervous system. I mean, like if I can tell people to eliminate one food, if they're not able to do a food sensitivity test, it's dairy. It really is. It's cow's milk. You can make the argument for sheep. You can make the argument for goat. And you can make the argument for the raw varieties of those being healthier. And I'll let you make that argument, and I'll probably agree with you. I really will. But you can't make that argument for homogenized. Basically, it's heated up above 142 degrees, which means you can't properly absorb the fat molecules. They don't look the same. It's been essentially blown through a tube, and it's broken up all the fat molecules. And cows that are fed grain, so they're fed gluten, right? They're fed soy. So now they're fed two of the things that we don't want coming into your dairy. And they're fed all sorts of things, antibiotics, they're fed growth hormone, all these things that you certainly don't want in your body that can seriously affect your thyroid. So those are the big three to stay away from: soy, gluten, and dairy. Now, again, when you get yourself healthy, can you do a cheat meal a week of whatever you'd like? Cheesecake? You certainly can. Get yourself healthy, do your cheat meal a week, thoroughly enjoy it, get it out of your system, and then move on, right? Next day is the next day. So that's really helpful. And then one thing I will say is if you do a cheat meal, doing something like a digestive enzyme, our daily digestive enzyme certainly helps with that, with lipase and breaking down all of these different things. Sorry, lipase for the fats, and then even something like lactase for the lactose in dairy, DPP4, which is for gluten. So you can do these things, but it's not a free pass to eat them. You just do it. It's a cheat meal. You got yourself healthy and enjoy. A lot of people don't like me saying cheat meal. I mean, it's just a word. You know, it's just a word. It's going off reservation, going off your diet, however you want to say it. It's like, it is what it is, right? It's just not healthy food. That's it. All right. So let's move on now to the three best foods for your thyroid. I really can't think of three better foods than these things. I can't. So what I wanted to do was keep things simple today and not give you a top 10 list, right? Top 10s are great for different things, like the top 10 signs for an upcoming disease. That was a couple episodes ago that people loved. Again, I mean, like that was one of our highest rated shows. So check that out at stephencabral.com/podcasts. It's called the 10 Telltale Signs of a Coming Disease, 788. All right. And then the next show, 789, was 3 ways to test your metabolism. So check out those two. And then here are the 3 best foods. Let's start with the first one. Seaweed. Seaweed. A lot of people never think about this, but it's kelp. It's all of those things that you can get from the sea vegetables in general. And you can look up sea vegetables. You don't need me to essentially name every single one. But one thing I will tell you is this. An easy way to get sea vegetables, like one way I like to do it. Well, here's the way like my girls like to do it, my 3-year-old and 5-year-olds. They love eating seaweed snacks. People are like, oh, that's gross. Like, how do your kids eat seaweed snacks? My girls have been eating seaweed snacks since they were like 1 year old. And all they are these basically, it's almost like crisped up kale. But if you have thyroid-based issues, kale might not be your first choice, right? It's fine if it's cooked, but might not be your first choice for raw cruciferous vegetables. Sea vegetables, totally fine. You can eat them raw if you want. I don't think you'll want to, but you could. And so seaweed snacks are a really easy way to get that, and they're delicious. So you can make your own. Good, easier to buy them packaged. And you just want to look for the organic variety, meaning like they're using organic olive oil or organic sesame oil. Like there's different varieties. And then they usually just have sea salt. Like super simple, not complicated. They're delicious. They make a great, like if you're looking like, hey, what's a healthy dessert? What can I have after dinner? Have a package of seaweed snacks. They come individually packaged. There's like 8 to 10 in each package, a bunch of sea salt on them. They're going to satisfy a lot of people's cravings. So that's a super easy one. Maybe I'll do a podcast one day if you're interested of healthy snacks that you can do. So this is certainly one of them. That's a great one. This is how I like to do it as well. So this is an easy way for me. Is, you know, the wraps that they put around sushi, right? It's called nori, Nori. Well, if you go to your local Whole Foods or Sprouts or maybe like a Trader Joe's or any of those places, you can actually buy, it's called nori crinkles. And it's these crispy seaweed snacks, again, with a little bit of sea salt on them. You can put them on salad. You can put them in rice bowls. You can put them in whatever you want. And they add texture. They actually make it taste really nice without getting any of that, like seaweed flavor that you might be worried about getting. So another great way is, I'm not a huge soup person. It just doesn't satisfy me, but a lot of people love doing soups. Put in some of the nori crinkles right into your soup. Easy way to get the sea vegetables. Now, why would you want sea vegetables? Because they're loaded with iodine. They're loaded with natural iodine. And that iodine is what's going to help you actually convert, right? It's going to help you convert your TSH to T4 to T3, right? That's your body needs that iodine to make active thyroid-based molecules. So super, super important. All right, what's up next on my list? Brazil nuts. How many times can you say someone's like, oh, they were just snacking on Brazil nuts? Almost never, right? Almost never. When's the last time you had a Brazil nut? Almost, you never have them. But here's the deal. If you have low thyroid, you're worried about your metabolism, or you just want to give yourself a little boost, have Brazil nuts every other day or 2 or 3 times a week. Have seaweed snacks 2 or 3 times a week. So you don't need to do all of these things every day, but if you can try to do them like a couple times a week, that's all you need. So Brazil nuts, here's the amazing thing. 1 to 2 Brazil nuts, that's it. I'm not talking about a handful of Brazil nuts. I'm talking about 1 to 2 Brazil nuts. That's all you need to get the recommended amount of selenium that your thyroid could use to help. The best way to think of selenium, so it does so many things for your body. Helps with detoxification, helps eliminate things like chlorine or other substances that can actually hurt your thyroid, bromines as well. But here's the other deal, is that it helps to convert T4 to active T3 in the cell. So without it, you don't get that conversion-based process. I'll go deep on this one day if you really want me to. I love doing like action-based steps. This is a simple action-based step. 1 to 2 Brazil nuts, great mid-afternoon snack. Or a lot of people don't know this, instead of using almond milk, instead of doing those things, you can make your own Brazil nut milk. Or you could throw 1 to 2 Brazil nuts right in your smoothie in the morning, blend it up, and then you have, of course, have your Brazil nuts, your extra selenium right in there. And people ask me, they're using my product, the product that I formulate, which is the Daily Thyroid Support by Equilibrium Nutrition. And they say, well, if I'm doing the Daily Thyroid Support that contains the natural iodine, that contains the natural selenium, the selenomethionine, which is the activated form, that's the form that your body recognizes, can I still do Brazil nuts? The answer is yes. The answer is yes, absolutely. You can still do 1 to 2 Brazil nuts a couple days a week. And that's all you really need. If you eat Brazil nuts every day, you're going to get tired of them. There's no need to do that. You can do them every other day. Keep getting your selenium. Again, the Daily Nutritional Support has your selenium right in it. The Daily Activated Multivitamin has your selenium. Then you take the Daily Thyroid Support, and it gives you more selenium, more iodine, and other things as well. Like, I don't talk about them a lot, but tyrosine, which is needed for the thyroid, needed to create dopamine, and also ashwagandha. Such a huge product for helping to calm the adrenals so that your thyroid doesn't get so burnt out. But again, we talked about that on the previous episode at 789. Check that out, and you'll hear about the thyroid and the adrenal function as well. All right, the last item that I have to get to on my list while respecting your time for the day is a healthy fat. Okay, a healthy fat. Again, I don't know if I've ever gone over this in depth, so that's why. Even 803 podcasts later, there's so much more for me to cover. There really is. And I do hope that you tune back into previous podcasts and you go back and you use this as kind of your functional medicine education. These are the things that they don't teach really in school. Sure, if you go become a naturopathic doctor, you're going to learn a lot of this, but you're not going to learn all of it. You learn about this from learning about an active practice, from continuing to do research, from reading books, from studying under coaches, studying mentors, doing additional certifications. Like all of those things is how you learn these. You really do. That's it. So, of course, I didn't have a dream one night and all of these things came to me. It's just by doing the research, doing the study. And one thing that I've learned is that in order to have a really high functioning nervous system, and even beyond that, I would say is endocrine system, meaning good hormones. And that includes thyroids, right? Because thyroid's a hormone. The adrenals, they produce hormones such as cortisol and norepinephrine, your sex hormones such as testosterone, estrogen, DHEA, dihydroepiandrosterone, progesterone, and pregnenolone. Well, all of those need healthy fats. Now, should we overdo healthy fats and make them 75% of our diet for most people, like a keto-based diet? I don't think so. Not in the long run, okay? But do we need healthy fats? Every one of us, yes, absolutely. Does that vary per person based on genetics, their ApoE genotype? Does it matter based on their digestion? Like, what if you don't have a gallbladder? Or what if you're not producing bile properly? Should you be loading up on a ton of fat? Most likely not, right? That doesn't make a lot of sense. So here's the deal. You still need fat. And so you start small and you work your way up. And one of the best fats for your for your endocrine system is ghee, okay? When I was over in Sri Lanka, and I'd already been using ghee because I'd studied Ayurvedic medicine for many years, but when I was over in Sri Lanka, that was the first internship that I did in Ayurveda. And then I spent, it was either 2 or 3 trips. There was 3 trips to India. I mean, I studied all over India. I studied in the south, in Kerala. I studied in Mysore. I studied in Delhi, and I was in the foothills of the Himalayas. So I was around Dehradun and Rishikesh and a few other cities as well. I mean, literally traveled all over India. And the reason I did that as well as I had heard, which ended up being the truth, that the practices of Ayurveda, the herbs that are used, the foods that are used are actually different in the south versus the north. And that's actually very, very simple and straightforward as to why, is that the vegetation is different. The vegetation in the Himalayas is different than the vegetation in the south of India. So that was remarkable. And one thing, though, that was just almost paramount was the use of ghee. And the reason I found out later was they use ghee as actually a transport-based method. The same reason we use raw honey. We use them for different things. We use ghee as a fat-soluble method of getting vitamin D or vitamin A or vitamin K and different herbs into the body. It's kind of like binding it to a phospholipid. So when I was making some of the herbal decoctions in the back room, I was actually making them by rolling it with a little bit of raw honey, or is making them with some ghee, infusing it with ghee. At the time, I knew a little bit, didn't know fully why. And then obviously I was able to ask questions and learned a lot more about it. And then of course, just my own study. I'm like, oh, that's why they did that. Whether they knew they were doing it, why or not, it had been handed down for thousands of years. And so now by me just getting into the science, I could figure out why they did it. So ghee is one of those things that's essentially, it's clarified butter. You're not going to get the reactivity usually, even if you have a dairy allergen. And you can get sheep, you can get goat-based ghee if you'd prefer. But Fourth and Heart, there's a bunch of different brands out there that I've recommended before. And I called it the Golden Fat. I did a Friday review on it. So great product to use. Let's say you're vegan and you're not going to have any ghee. Understandable. Totally fine with that. You could use coconut oil. Coconut oil can be tremendous for the nervous system. Again, not the right product for everyone, but coconut oil can certainly be one of those things that helps tremendously for the endocrine system and the hormones. And that would be a close second. Yes, olive oil, all of those are great. You know that I promote olives and olive oil for healthy heart and Mediterranean diet, all that. That's my favorite. But we're talking about, we're using this as almost like a supplement, right? We're using Brazil nuts as a supplement. Seaweed as a supplement. We're using ghee as a supplement, like as a health food supplement. And just not saying that you only need to use that, but anywhere from a teaspoon to a tablespoon once or twice a day would be tremendous for most people. So hopefully this was helpful. Definitely the top worst foods for sure for your thyroid, and the 3 best foods that I can think about. Of course, I'll always give you updates, more foods, yes, and more resources in the future to boost your metabolism, help your thyroid, and of course, live a long, healthy life. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And as always, if this show was helpful, please do pass it on to anyone you believe it could serve. Before you go, I wanted to share a personal story with you. The real reason I began to get well finally is because I figured out what was wrong with me. And that might seem pretty obvious, but I went from doctor to doctor for over 2 years before discovering at-home functional medicine lab testing. These are the labs that enabled me to finally figure out what was wrong with my hormones, blood sugar, electrolytes, and gut health. And once I knew what was wrong, I could then follow a proven plan in order to rebalance my body from the inside out. This is why I believe so strongly in functional medicine lab testing, and why I've made it my mission to share these labs with the world. Now at equa.life, you can order an at-home lab test or lab bundle for you and your family and be able to complete it within the week. Plus, the EquaLife difference is that you're not left to try to read and figure out these labs on your own. We explain what your lab numbers mean, what they mean in the much bigger picture, and then how to go about rebalancing your body in order to heal. To see our full selection of lab tests, or to set up a free lab selection call to find out what labs may be best for you, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. And do remember, we ship these all over the world. To find out more and to set up your free lab selection call, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. That's EQUI.LIFE/labs.